One of the big surprises in ESO's next patch, Update 43, is actually the Necromancer class. After what feels like years in mediocrity, the Necromancer suddenly has tons of useful buffs and debuffs, making them a great addition to any sort of content, and especially for playing solo. In this video, we'll go over an extremely easy to play 1-bar Magicka Necro setup with tons of damage and self-healing that also makes use of some of the best Necro changes coming in that new update, making it the perfect easy mode build for solo and even group content. So let's jump right into it. Alright everybody, here we are back on the Magicka Necro, and time for a build update. Necromancers are going through some changes, like I mentioned in the introduction, and with the addition of scribing and these new buffs and debuffs that we're getting, this class is actually pretty good now for solo content. I already updated the Stamina Necro Death Knight build. I'll have a link for that down below if you want to check that out, but in this video we're checking out the easy 1-bar Magicka Necro. Super powerful setup, very easy to play, so let's go ahead and jump right into it. Really don't need much in terms of buffs here. Check out that stat sheet. So about 30k max Magicka, 28k maximum health, which is huge, 18k max stamina, so really big resource pools on this build. Recovery is decent, but you honestly don't need much because this is a heavy attack focused build. You have more health recovery than everything, and that's going to help with your survivability. Weapon and spell damage is good, crit chance is good as well. Keep in mind that's going to go up when your enemies are in execute range. And our defenses are really good too, 26k, 25k or so physical and spell resistance. In terms of attributes, you definitely want all 64 points into Magicka. This is a Magicka focused Necromancer build. In terms of the food, we got Bewitched Sugar Skulls. This is going to give us the most max stats possible, as you saw on the stat sheet, plus a little bit of extra health. So this is a great option for any, sort of heavy attack build where you're not concerned about sustain. The max stats on this is great. Tons of self buffs that we're getting. We'll talk about where those come from in just a minute. We do have the Thief Mundus Stone. This is just going to maximize our critical chance, so very important as well. Now, in terms of consumables, any potion you want is fine. Health, Magicka, stamina, whatever. It's all good. I'm actually using armor potions. If you're curious about how to make those, you can check out the written guide. Basically, what those do is it brings up your base armor from about 20k, as you saw, to about 25, 26k, because this actually stacks with your major resolve armor buff. So it is pretty impressive for a solo gameplay, especially if you want to be more tanky in something like Infinite Archive, for example. This is going to go a long way. So if you want to see that, check out the written guide. Link will be down below for that. But otherwise, any old potion is completely fine. And then as far as the race goes, still going with Khajiit on this build. I think it's great for the crit damage focus. You get 12% bonus critical damage and critical healing. You also get some nice bonus max stats and recoveries. So Khajiit is probably one of my top tier picks for a race, for a solo build at least. Tons of great bonuses there. But that covers the basics, so let's jump right into the gear sets next. Starting with our first 5-piece set, Sergeant's Mail is still your go-to heavy attack set, I think, for ESO. This gives you not some, great offensive bonuses. Gives you health and health recovery, which does help with survivability, but the main thing you want here is this Sergeant's Focus buff. Still the best heavy attack buff in the game in terms of raw damage when you have this fully stacked. So this does work best with 1-bar builds. The reason why is because you need to stack this up 4 times, and you need to maintain your stacks. They actually go away after 5 seconds. So if you're doing lots of bar swapping, in between your heavy attacks, you might actually lose your Sergeant's Focus stacks, and then this becomes much less useful, right? So combining this with the 1-bar build with the Mythic that we'll talk about in a minute still is, amazing damage, really easy to play, and even better with the Necromancer buffs, which we'll talk about in a minute. So you're going to run this as a Lightning Staff with Precise. Got Absorb Stamina, which seems a little weird on the Magicka Necro. You'll see why in just a minute. But remember, two-handed weapons give you 2 set bonuses, so that's going to give us the first 2. Then we have a Sergeant's Mail Chest, heavy armor reinforced with Max Magicka just to maximize those defensive stats. And then 2 pieces of jewelry, so we got the Sergeant's Necklace and a ring with the weapon and spell damage and Bloodthirsty trait. Second 5-piece set, I think there are a lot of different options here you can run with this. Currently, I'm using Theriker's Strike, which is a new set from the Gold Road chapter. This is actually a crafted set, which is really nice because you can craft this in whatever weights that you want. And it's actually a very good heavy attack set. You can see it gives us tons of weapon and spell damage. And for the 5-piece bonus, dealing damage with a fully charged heavy attack gives you Major Berserk for 10 seconds. So that's 10% bonus damage to all of your attacks. Now, why am I choosing this over some of the other, sets that we have access to? Well, mainly it's because it has comparable damage, but it's easier to proc this effect. Now, some other things you could try, or you might even have these, on your character or in the bank somewhere. Stormmaster, right? Stormmaster is still a very good set. Medium armor gives you crit chance, gives you a nice bonus to your heavy attack damage, but you have to deal critical damage with a fully charged heavy attack. And so there is some downtime, especially if you don't have super high crit chance, which this build doesn't have unless we're in execute range. So when I was testing this on this build, it was only up like half the time, which really was not great at all. Now, another option which I think is better is Noble Duelist. This gives you a similar, actually a better heavy attack bonus. You can see over 2k bonus to your heavy attack damage, but you do need to be in melee range in order to proc that. Now, you won't be able to do that in every fight, in every encounter, especially in places like Infinite Archive, where you do need to be at range and for some, fight mechanics. It is better, like I said, but I think the easiest one of all is Theriker because, if you look at this, all you have to do is hit a fully charged heavy attack, no matter what, no matter where you are, and you get the Major Berserk for 4 seconds. This actually it goes perfectly, I think, with Sergeant's Mail, which also has like a 4 to 5 second cooldown or stack timer that you need to maintain. So as long as you're weaving in those heavy attacks between abilities, you're getting tons of bonus damage. But like I said, you can mix up this set, and I'll have more options listed in the written guide in case you want to check that out. But as far as Theriker goes, because it's crafted, I did make this in medium armor to get a little bit more defensive stats, to get a little cost reduction for stamina, and to get bonus crit damage. So I've got 4 pieces of medium, and a light waist. That's just to maximize our armor values. So that's medium shoulders, light waist, medium hands, legs, and feet. All divines, all max magicka for your glyphs there. So that only leaves 2 set pieces left over. Obviously, we're not doing a monster set, a full set, because we're running shoulders here. So I am doing 1 piece slime craw in medium to get some bonus crit chance. And of course, we've got the Oaken Soul Ring. Now, this is still probably the best mythic. It's going to be your go-to for a 1-bar or a heavy attack build setup, just because it simplifies your rotation so much, gives you so many awesome buffs, especially Empower, which makes your heavy attacks do so much more damage. You cannot miss out on that buff if you want a heavy attack build. If you need help with this, I do have a guide over on my website, hacktheminotaur.com. It's still worth getting. If you don't have this, please pick it up. Trust me, it is well worth your time. But that is the setup. Again, Sergeant's Mail, we've got Theriker's Strike, 1 piece of Slimecraw, and the Oaken Soul Ring. Now, let's jump into where things have changed with the skills. And this is where it's getting a lot more interesting with the Necromancer and some of the buffs that they got. Now, first of all, we are using Gravelord's Sacrifice. This comes from the Gravelord skill line. That's your second ability. And they have changed this, thankfully, where you don't need to be in combat to cast this skill. So now you can basically pre-buff it. It makes sense because it is a buff, right? It increases your damage over time effects and your class ability damage by 15%. I don't use it on a lot of Necromancer builds, but I do think it's really good for a heavy attack build because that does apply to those heavy attack damage ticks, that bonus damage. And has a pretty good, long duration, 20 seconds. It's easy to maintain. Even better now because you can pre-buff this before combat starts and you're good to go. Next up, Unnerving Boneyard. This is also from Gravelord. This is the 3rd ability, and this one got some nice buffs as well. If you were to look at the tooltip, you see this now gives you 2 powerful debuffs on enemies. Still got Major Breach, which is great. Perfect for solo content. Now it also has Minor Vulnerability, so that's going to increase the damage taken by enemies by 5%. Very good. You can buff the damage by 30% if you have a corpse on the ground, which is great. And there's also a synergy. So this ability is fantastic now with the extra debuff, but also with the extended duration. Now, you may be looking at the 10 seconds and, what am I talking about? Well, that Major Breach and that Minor Vulnerability debuff is going to last more like 14 because you can see there's a 4.1 second timer that applies those debuffs. So basically, once the effect ends at 10 seconds, you still have 4 more seconds where your enemy is debuffed, and you can recast this ability. So it does help a lot with rotations. I know it doesn't really matter as much on a 1-bar build. This is more useful with two bars, obviously. But it's still nice that you don't have to cast this as often, and it has an additional debuff, which is great. Now, let's talk about scribing, because I was on the fence about scribing for Necromancer until I checked out their class script. Now, you can apply the class script, obviously, on a lot of different abilities. Now, I am using it for a damage shield, so I'm doing the Wield Soul. This comes from the Soul Magic skill line, so right down here. This is actually the first scribing skill that you get when you begin the quest, so it's pretty easy to get if you have the Gold Road chapter. They actually did increase the size of the shield, which is good news. In Update 43, this is now going to be more comparable to your light armor damage shield, and you can get 2 bonus effects. So like I said, I'm using the class script for Necromancer. What does that do? Well, it gives you bonus health, Magicka, and stamina, which is fine. It's a small percent, so you don't really notice this. But if no corpses are nearby, it also creates a corpse. And I can't tell you how nice that has been for this particular build to have corpses on demand, basically, to use with my other skills. Basically, you have 100% control on it. When you cast this shield, as long as there's no corpses nearby, instant corpse on the ground, and then I can empower my other skills. So I do really like that. I've also got Major Vitality, obviously, on this. This makes the shield even stronger, so if I were to cast it twice, you would see the difference on the tooltip here. Instead of a 10k shield, it's now 12k shield, which is pretty good. And it's also going to increase my healing received by another 12%, which is good as well. Next ability is sort of up for grabs in terms of which morph you want to choose. Now, I went with Ruinous Scythe, and the reason why I like this so much on the heavy attack build is the instant off balance. You can apply this to all enemies that you hit with it, set them off balance, and off balance enemies take a ton more damage from heavy attacks. So it's a great way to burn bosses. It's a great way to burn through adds that you need to defeat very quickly. You just set them off balance, do your heavy attack thing. Typically, it will stun them too, as long as they're not a boss or some type of elite enemy. They'll get stunned as well. Plus, you get the clutch healing from this. You can see tooltip looks low, but it is expanded with each additional enemy hit. And if it crits, healing can crit. So you'll get 15, 20k burst heals off of this, depending on how many enemies you have in front of you. Now, this comes from the Bone Tyrant skill line, by the way. So the alternative skill, if you would prefer this, it is a Magicka morph, and it gives you about the same damage, about the same healing, but it gives you a solid little heal over time, about 2k heal every 2 seconds for 10 seconds. So it can help a little bit with survivability. You'll definitely have less damage, though, without easy access to that off balance. So it is a trade-off. So basically more healing for this morph, a heal over time, or that off balance proc, more damage, more utility with a potential stun. So I would just say try out both versions, see which one you like better. But last up, we have our heal on this build, and I've switched this out from Spirit Guardian to Mortal Coil. So I think Spirit Guardian is okay if the content you're doing is not too difficult. The problem is it just is very slow to heal you, and so if you're dropping health quickly, it's really not going to help you that much, whereas Mortal Coil gives you a ton of healing, and it heals you every second. Again, Spirit Guardian is only a 2-second heal over time. This is every second that it ticks. Now, the only caveat to that, I would say, is this is so much easier if you're using that class mastery script to create corpses on demand, because you do need a corpse to get this heal. Or if you're using the other version of Blast Bones, you can use Blighted Blast Bones to get easy corpse access, if you don't have access to scribing, for example, and then it'll be very easy to have corpses on the ground for your Mortal Coil for more healing. So that's kind of how that works. Again, Spirit Guardian is a nice easy heal for easy content. Mortal Coil packs more healing power, but you need more corpses on the ground, so you need to manage that somehow, either with the class script or probably with, Blighted Blast Bones creating those corpses for you. Last but not least, the ultimate here, Glacial Colossus. I just think this is awesome for all types of content, group content, solo content. It's fantastic. I love how this stuns enemies. We'll see that in the rotation in a little bit. Great for ads that come in for a little bit of crowd control, and the major vulnerability for 17 seconds is huge. This is going to be great for you and the group, for everybody. Fantastic skill. All right, let's do a quick rotation on the boss just so you can see how easy this is. Now, in terms of buffs, like I said, not much to maintain here. Gravelord Sacrifice, 20-second duration. Keep that guy up. And then you're just going to be casting your shield, casting Boneyard, setting the enemy off balance, and then using that shield in between heavy attacks to proc a corpse. That's going to let you maintain Mortal Coil, and you're just maintaining your buffs in between. There's a Gravelord Sacrifice again. Boneyard. Gonna recast my shield, get a corpse for Mortal Coil. Go ahead and pop an ultimate and a shield here to take care of these adds pretty quick. You can see how powerful that is. And then rebuff. Haven't even had to use a potion yet. We can use it. Maintain those dots. The other thing you want to be watching is your off-balance timer. So when that goes away, the enemy can be set off balance. You want to make sure you're heavy attacking during this phase, the next 5 or 6 seconds, just to get the most damage possible. So we should have some more adds coming in. I'll go ahead and save my ultimate for that right here. You can see it just instantly evaporates any adds that come into the fight, which is really nice. Shield here. You can see my sustain is looking really good, even with, you know, not having really much recovery on this build. Khajiit definitely helps with that, as do our Necromancer passives and skills. Okay, let's go ahead and proc off balance here. Get some big damage in these heavy attacks. Shield there, rebuff. And there we go. All right, let's talk about champion points next. As always, if you have any questions about these or you want to see all the passives, check out the written guide. I do have that laid out for 300, 600, 900, and 1200 CP if you want to follow along. Should be something there no matter what level you are. But in terms of the green tree, pretty much my basic setup here is going to be Steed's Blessing and then Treasure Hunter with Rationer and Liquid Efficiency. In the blue tree, I would definitely start here in Extended Might and make sure you pick up Weapons Expert first. You can see this is a huge buff for heavy attack builds. 20% bonus damage done makes a big difference. So I would definitely get that first. Then you can come over here and get some of these Fighting Finesse, for example, Deadly Aim, Thaumaturge. Deadly Aim actually does buff the Lightning Staff heavy attack because it sort of counts as single target damage and then gets applied to nearby targets at the end. So that will help to buff that. And then, like I said, Fighting Finesse, extra crit damage is always good. Don't forget to pick up your defensive passive. Some people do miss this. Biggest one is going to be Preparation here. 10% damage reduction. Very nice to have for this particular build. Now, Red Tree, you do have some options, but I would definitely start with these three here. So Rejuvenation, Fortified, Boundless Vitality. Those are just kind of the go-to three here. And then I'm actually doing Bastion because of that damage shield that I'm running. This does make it a lot more effective. So a 15% boost in the damage shield strength does actually make quite a difference. But that's what I'm doing for my 4th slotted star there. But like I said, any questions, just check out that written guide. Link for that is going to be down below. And if you're curious about the outfit style, this is actually a costume. This is the Fate Scryer from the Necrom chapter. I just changed the dyes here a little bit on the costume itself. Everybody, just a quick note that we are still rolling out members-only builds and guides right here on YouTube. And if you like this Necromancer update, you're going to love our Stamina Necromancer Death Knight build, which I just updated for our Tier 2 Elite Squad channel members. This build is literally unkillable with tons of healing, sustain, and damage, making it perfect for solo content like world bosses, arenas, and the new Infinite Archive. It's been so strong, in fact, that the developers recently had to nerf one of the sets I used on it, but this new update makes it stronger than ever. So if that sounds good to you, or you just want to check out this and all of the other unique members-only builds and guides we have on the channel, Just click that join button down below or the membership link down in the description and make sure to select the Tier 2 Elite Squad option. Huge shout out as always to all of our channel members here at HTM, which make this channel possible. I could not do what I do without you, so thanks again. And thanks to all of you for watching this video, and I will see you around in the next one.